Hi, good morning. Good morning, Kanchan.
Morning, sir.
How is it going so far?
A little bit easier, not any major problems arise.
Okay. So you have launched the survey and the in-depth questions also. Have you started the interviews?
Yes, sir. Not the interviews, the questions papers are implemented.
Okay. Are you tracking the responses? How many people have responded so far?
About 10, 15,
Okay. And what are you targeting?
about 50, 70.
Okay. Right. So 10, 15. Okay. So you need to give about some time for that. It's
Okay.
not easy. I can tell you from experience that getting the people to respond is not an easy thing. So you
Yes.
need to give them time, um, but keep following up. Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Samadhi. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How is everything with you? Survey questions sent?
Yeah, so I sent the questions to almost 5 branches, but still I didn't get much response, just
Okay.
20 response.
Yeah. So anyway, you would have sent it out somewhere on the 22nd of May.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Both of you. Yeah. 22nd of May,
Yeah,
like we discussed. Yeah. So
yes.
Yes,
give it
sir.
a. It's too soon. And with all the bad weather and other things happening, people would have been preoccupied. That's why it's important to send it out fast. Then you have some time to get the responses. Anyway, we are targeting to get everything before 22nd June. I kept that as the latest date because you need to get the data and analyze it. So analysis takes time. So follow up with them after about a week,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
After about a week, keep following up until you get the required amount. Samadhi, you're doing interviews also, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, in my proposal, I didn't mention about interviews. But for doing a better research, I thought of doing interviews as well. Is that okay?
Okay. So in your research proposal, you have not given to do interviews, is it?
Yeah, I just write there 150 questionnaires. I'm giving questionnaires. That's all, but not the qualitative research
Okay.
interviews. I didn't mention there.
Okay. Good morning, Lairu. You're on mute still. Okay. So Samadhi, let me ask next also because see, your research proposal is what you have based what you're going to do. So if there is a change, you need to tell it. Now, like I said earlier, the conceptual framework also, you can present something in your research proposal and say you have a change. It's always good to tell about it and then show what the change is. So you can say that when you're doing the write up for the research paper, you can say that this was my conceptual framework and I based it on this. However, I felt that there needed some change to it, and therefore, here's the new change. And you show it and then you explain that. In terms of this, the methodology, because I don't remember seeing much of your the five of you doing much on the research methodology using the onion method. Saunders onion. Did you mention about that in your proposal?
Yeah, I mentioned it that onion method there.
Okay, so did you select mixed method or mono
So
method?
I just write there. I'm doing quantitative and qualitative both just a line, but I described only the
Okay, okay. But if you have
quantitative.
mentioned
Yes.
both, it's okay. Then you go ahead with it. Go ahead and do the
Yeah.
qualitative. What you can say is you can explain yourself when you're doing the methodology write-up. In the methodology write-up, you can say that um, you originally decided to do quantitative uh, research, but in order to improve on the research findings and to explore it further, that you felt the mixed method approach is better. And I'm going to discuss the methodology, Onion. So with that, you can understand how you're going to justify it. All right, so we'll do that today. All right, Jalia, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How are you? How's the survey going?
Yeah, it's going on. I sent few WhatsApp group as well and to the few banks as well.
Okay. And are you tracking the responses? It's a little too early to get a lot of responses, so
Yeah.
you need to give some time.
As of today, just 4 response are received.
Yeah. I think Lahiru dropped off. I don't know whether he's having a challenge logging in again. Lahiru was there and then he suddenly got disconnected. Uh, I'll wait a little bit to start. Let Lahiru also join in. But in general, remember the quantitative survey, sometimes you'll get quick responses, and then after that, there'll be a long waiting period before you get more responses. So it's important to follow up with whomever you have approached for the quantitative survey. Now, all of you are doing the qualitative also, the in-depth interviews. Jali, are you doing? You're not doing.
No, I'm not doing that.
Okay. Kanchana, you are doing the interviews, right?
Still not, sir.
Yeah, but you have to do,
I
right? It's part of
I
your,
have
right.
my
So what I would recommend is while you're waiting for the quantitative, schedule the interviews now. Okay? It's not a linear progression. You don't have to do the quantitative and get the results and then go to the interviews. Do this parallel because you have 1 month now. Within this month, you need to complete both activities, right? So schedule the interviews now. It's very difficult to sometimes book time. You have to be free. The other person has to be free. They have to clear up their schedules. You have to clear up your schedule. So, and you have to give a lot of time for this, right? At least the interview might go for about 45 to 1 hour, 45 minutes to 1 hour, just so that you can get some valuable data, which might be about 15 minutes of data. Okay, so the interview part, if you're doing the interviews, you need to start now itself so that you have enough time to conduct the interviews. Samadhi, how many interviews are you planning to do then?
Just 5. So is that enough? Because I'm doing 150 quantitative.
Yeah, that should be okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but remember your 150 is your expected. The real outcome might be less.
Okay.
Normally, we say based on your survey sample, anything above, I mean, if you can get 100%, it's wonderful. But reality will be you might not get 100%. So then at least 75% is a good mark to say if you got 75% of your target 150, that'll be good. Okay. Kanchana, how many are you expecting for the survey?
about 15. 2.
501 survey?
No, interviews, sir.
Interviews 15. Yeah, interviews. Lahiru is back. Okay. Interviews 15, that's a lot. That's a lot,
10 or
right?
15.
Yeah. So I would say this, be practical. 15 is good if you can have, but then you need to start now. Don't wait any longer because 15 interviews for you to schedule. I don't know whether you can do 2 interviews every day or 3 because you're doing it during work or after work.
During work, sir. Otherwise we
Okay.
can't wait.
Okay. Just plan it out well because 15 is not an easy number. It's good if you can get I mean, the more data you get, the better research results, but 15 is a big number. And the survey, how many are you expecting to respond?
50, 75, 75.
Okay. So again, there are also keep in mind if you don't get 100% of your responses, try as much as possible, but see whether at least 75% to 80% of your sample should come in, right? And how about you, Jalia? How many are you expecting to respond to your survey?
It's 150 to 200.
Okay. All right. So again, since all of you are the main part will be the survey and the quantitative data, it's important to get in the numbers. Just keep a very close track on it so that you don't wait until the last minute to get people to respond. Lahiru, are you okay? Hi. Okay. I can't hear you much. Maybe you can increase the.
Yeah, can you hear?
Yeah, can hear now. Can hear now. So, have you launched the survey?
Yeah, I distributed it among
Okay.
some members, but I
Ah,
have to distribute more.
okay.
Some outside staff and people, I have to do that.
Okay. Okay. Follow up very closely. And now I'll ask all of you, how is your literature review coming on?
It's
දැන් ඉතින් hina වෙනවා. Today is the due date for chapter 2, right? Yeah. How are you on that? So chapter 2 is the whole literature review part. I hope you're all okay on that. Try to submit it today. Even tomorrow is okay, but I need to give you your feedback also so that you can do the amendments. Any challenges that you faced in the literature review? Kanchana, how about you?
Not yet, sir. I still collecting some data and references
Okay.
from the articles and that.
Okay. So have you started writing your literature?
Yeah, yes, sir. I started and today I can finish it.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to just share my screen. Opening up the Bible for all of you to see. Right? This is your friendly guide. And in the friendly guide, my biggest recommendation for you is step by step, go by this. Okay? So when you're writing out the headings, the subheadings, and what you're putting into that, you won't miss. This is like a checklist. So please use this friendly guide as you progress on writing your research. So here we said at the beginning, introduction, maximum 1,000 words, right? And in this part, you need to cover all of these areas: your business issue, the research problem, research question, research aims, the objectives, and the research rationale, like I explained previously. Now, once you do this, you will figure out that 1,000 words is not a lot. Okay? But my earnest appeal to you is make sure that you don't overwrite this section. You get marks for this, but remember the majority of the marks are for the other chapters where you have to do the literature review, your methodology, and then your discussion. So you have to have enough words to do your discussion. Don't overwrite this area because it won't impact your marks. If you write 2,000 words, your marks, what you get is still limited on this. And you don't want to do that because that will take away space from the other areas that you have to concentrate on, which gather or which carry more marks. So remember to keep this within the 1,000 and focus well, because if you write it according to these subheadings, you will be able to clearly say what needs to be said. Okay. Also remember, like I said before, don't use bullet points. Write it out in paragraph form. You can put sub numbering, but we don't. The London Met method of writing is normally chapter and subchapter, like this 1.5. You can do a 1.51, 1.52, but it's not required. If it's within the chapter, you can use numbers in that also. Say research objectives, you can put 1, 2, 3, 4 under that 1.5, right? But don't use bullets. Use numbering. In all places, use numbering, because even if you want to refer in your discussion, you can refer to it by the number. You can't use a bullet and refer to a bullet. So you can say 1.5a or 1.51 Roman number 1, and you can refer to that when you're writing your discussion. Okay. And that's why, because everything that we do in the research, we cross-reference and we keep on keeping that link. Whatever we put in there has to be something that you can refer to, or it has to be something that if you want the examiner to look at it, then that is why you do referencing, because it's important for the examiner to refer that point. And that's why it has to be very clear how the link is. Okay. So then when you go to literature review, this is 3,000 words. Okay. Now you can see from 1,000 immediate jump to 3,000 words. That is because the research is broken up into so many parts which require some more volume in writing. Okay. So remember to keep this as the structure. You have an introduction, which is a very brief introduction, maybe about 200 words there, 200 to 300 words as an introduction, what you're covering in your literature review and how you are structuring it. Say that you're going to speak about your variable 1, your variable 2, and then the conclusion that you're bringing in, and then your conceptual framework. Now, when you do the introduction and to variable 1 and variable 2, that means your independent variable and your dependent variable. Then you are explaining those parts. Then you have your discussion, how you're going to bring these two things together, right? Always remember, base your discussion on literature. Okay, so in here is where that you will have to do a lot of in-text referencing. Okay, that's where you cite references for anything that you're putting into it. So as you discuss in your variable 1, variable 2, and in the discussion chapter 2.4, you need to take the references, the literature or other reference materials. Say now all of you are doing relating to banking. So if you're referencing internal documents or annual reports or studies done, you need to reference those here as well. So it's in your list of references and you're bringing in the in-text referencing here. That will ensure that whatever you're showing is considered as quoted properly, referenced properly, and won't go under plagiarism. Okay. Then when you come to the methodology, remember your methodology is 1,500 words. Okay. So that's what we're going to discuss today. This is the research method that you are applying. So this will be based on the research onion. Now, can I just know from all of you, have you gone through the research onion? Were you taught that? Any of you have any idea about the research onion? Okay, so I'll take you through that now. All right. Let me just take you through the research onion, because I think we should start there. Give me a minute. I'll come back to this part, but before that, I'm going to discuss this part here. So 3.2 research methodology. This is where you talk about the research onion. So I'll give you a brief about what the research onion is. Have any of you heard that name before? Research onion. Mark Saunders. Yes? Karla tino dekha. Lahiru, yes?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. So the research onion is how you base all your philosophical choices. When you're leading into a research, there are certain choices that we have to make. Now, some of those choices are based on the type of research that we want to do. Some of the choices are based on our personal preferences or how our subjects, that means the research subjects also have their way of doing things. And another is based on the time frame you have for doing a research. So say, for example, versus a master's program where you have about 3 months to complete versus a longer research that is being done over a number of years, the choices you make have to also support your objective. Okay. So that's what we call this research onion, which is also, you see, something that I learned from my supervisor. Research is very theoretical. Neither. You might think it's very boring, it's very theoretical. Give me a minute, I put on the fan. I'm getting a bit hot here. Okay, so research is, you can consider it, I don't like to say it's boring, but yes, it's a lot of theory. Now, the difference between a master's program and say undergraduate studies, here you're in a postgraduate environment. You're looking more at the practical application of what your research is going to help you find. That means we are looking at how we sort of link the theory world to the real world application. And that's an important part of a master's program. You are looking at theory, yes, you're looking at historical, empirical theory, you're looking at the previous research done, and you're looking at all these source material for information and data. At the same time, you are doing a survey, you are doing questionnaires, which means you're getting new data. You're seeing a new perspective. Now, what we are trying to do here is we are seeing how can we build a nice connection between that theory and a practical application. So when we say practical application, that is what this research onion method allows us to arrive at. So Mark Saunders introduced this research onion, and there are and why it's called a research onion is because you start from the outermost layer and you go inward all the way to the data collection part, right? So I'm going to show you the research onion. Let me just pull up an image of that. I have my research onion, which I did. I'll show you that also. But I would prefer to show you the standard one, which will give you an idea of what the overall research onion is about. Here we go. This is very easy to, you can Google it and find this full image, but you need to give credit if you're going to copy paste this image into your research paper. You need to give the proper referencing, and I will take you through that part. But this is what the research onion looks like, and you can see that there are multiple layers. So it's one layer wrapping around another till you have the outermost layer. And what we are doing is, when we do the discussion on the methodology, you need to explain about the research onion, but you're not doing it from a point of theory, meaning you're just going to tell what's in the research onion as a theory, but you're going to mention the specific choices that you made in identifying how you're going to do the data collection. So now it might look as something you're doing in reverse now because you've already started the data collection. But normally, when we do the research methodology part, and there would have been the lectures that are recorded where you could go through the lectures. In that, there definitely would be a section on the research methodology and about the onion. So I'm going to just go through this onion with you. You can take down some notes also so that it will help you. The whole idea about this is identifying how we arrive at the method we are going to use and how we justify our choices. You see, somebody from outside looking at your research cannot challenge you if you have justified the reason that you did the research in a particular way. People can say, no, why did you do this? You could have selected this. Why did you select this? And they can ask questions. But as long as you have looked at this properly and made certain decisions based on the most effective way to do the research, then you can justify your decision for conducting your quantitative, your qualitative, or only quantitative or only qualitative, and the method you went about collecting the data, all that you justify using the research onion. So I'll give you an example of something that I did wrong in my research proposal and how I corrected it when I did my research paper. Now, what is required is not just explaining these terms in the academic or theoretical method. That means you're not just supposed to give the explanation or the definition for positivism or realism. You need to actually say, these are there. This is my choice because this is what I believe will be the best approach. Okay. So we are going through some of these things. I was told that you don't have to focus much on the outermost layer. The outermost layer has 3 parts to it. And I'll just pull up my document to show you. We have 3 areas called ontology, epistemology, and axiology. Okay. So again, ontology, epistemology, and axiology. Those 3 deal with how we look at the research from an external point of view. Okay. So they deal with things like my choices, the ethics that I'm going to follow, and it also deals with what outside looks at it. So let me just give you a very simple definition for those. Okay. So when you look at the research onion, there's 3 layers. The outer layer, that means outside the onion itself, it's called the philosophy, right? And that is about what is real and what is knowledge. So ontology, the word ontology, and I'll just type it here in the chat so that you can see it. Okay, so I'm talking about these 3 areas. Right. Just look at the chat. You will see the 3 words: ontology, epistemology, axiology. All right. So if we go through what is ontology, it's about study of what is real and the existence of it. Right. So it is understanding about the existence of the people, and what it is more like, how would I explain it? What is the identity of the person? All right. So I believe they have said that you don't have to focus much on these three layers, right? But let me just give you a quick. Okay. So when you say ontology, it's what is true or real. Epistemology is the theory of knowledge. Okay. What is known and how do you get to know about it? Right. Ontology is what is true or real. So say, for example, in your study, you are going to go by what is true, the truth that is already out there. And you're going to take that truth and take it as, this is the foundation of my research. This is what is true. Okay. So when you do that, you're making a choice saying that what is there outside already, I am accepting as the truth. And this is the reality. Okay. So let's take, for example, senior citizens do not use mobile banking, or they don't like digital banking. That's the reality, or that's the truth. And you're taking it, that is the truth. And then based on that, you're trying to either say it's not the truth or it is the truth. Okay. So that is what ontology means. What is truth or reality that is happening in the real world already. When you look at epistemology, epistemology is the theory part of knowledge. That means what are the principles that are out there and how do you get to know about it? All right. So say, for example, how do people know that this is the truth out there? Okay. So for example, let's say something like this. What is knowledge is what people know about something. So I know that senior citizens don't use digital banking. How do I know that? Is because that is what I have experienced, what I have observed happening, right? So it's not somebody has said it, but it is my personal knowledge. And how do I have access to that knowledge? Because I have seen it happening. Okay. But that it has to be truth that is also justified. Okay. So that means, say that you say, I know that senior citizens don't use it. It's not enough. What is there to justify that truth? So what's the knowledge that you have and how do you justify it? That is what is called epistemology. All right. The other part is, the third one is called axiology. Axiology is more concerned about the values that you as a researcher hold. Let's say, in terms of axiology, what is your position in terms of research? I'll give you a good example. This is something my supervisor told me. Say, for example, now you've released a survey. Now, you can just release the survey and wait for the results. Or you can call the people and say, I sent you a survey, please, can you respond to it? And, okay, I will respond to it. I sent you a survey, can you please respond to it in 2 days? What is the difference between the first one that I said and the second one? I sent you a survey, can you please respond? I sent you a survey, can you please respond in 2 days? Is there a difference in those two statements? There is. Lahiru, would you like to comment? What is the difference and how can it impact?
Yeah, there is a difference, sir. So in the second statement, we have given them a target kind of thing to get it completed.
Yes, there's a target. So how can a target influence the results?
Because if you don't
What could
get
happen?
the information during the given time, then we'll be in trouble. No, we will not be able to prepare the
And what does it do to the person responding? What sort of impact will it have on the person responding?
It's getting prompted to reply. No?
Okay, and how can that influence the result? This is what thinking is about. See, if I put a timeline and say, please respond in 2 days, you call the person up and you're pushing them. Machang, have you done the survey? Can you do the survey quickly? I need the results. What happens? Can it influence the result? Yes or no? What do you feel? How can it influence the result? Give an example. If you're pushed to do something, right? How will it influence the way you do it? Will you take a lot of time to do it, or will you do it very quickly because somebody is telling you to do it? Ah, and then maybe my answers might not be as genuine as it should be. It can be influenced. You see? So axiology deals with my ethics. I don't want to influence people responding to this. That's why even when you're having an in-depth interview, when you're doing an interview, you ask very open-ended questions and try to gather what the person says without influencing the answer. You might say, my variable, I have to do a tick box and somehow get a response to justify this variable. And if I ask a question where I'm putting the answer into the mouth of the person, there's no point. So your axiology deals with how your ethics are in terms of you conducting the research, right? So what are the values that you hold? The values. And if you look at axiology, it is the value that you're going to get, right? So when you look at that value part of it, it's what do I hold as my values when I'm doing this? How do I conduct the interview? How will I ensure that the survey is not biased, or the answers are not the answers are genuine answers of the respondents, right? So ontology, epistemology, and axiology deals with the philosophical side of it, right? I believe that you will not be tested too much on this part of the writing. Okay. I'll give you an example of how I wrote, just to give you an idea, but I'm not going to go into detail there. Let's go through the rest of the onion so that I can share with you what the more important parts are that you need to focus on. Okay, here we go. Let me share my screen. Please ask questions here if anything is not clear, because this is an area that you need to really understand well. Now I can just tell you these are the things that you should select, but that's not going to serve the purpose. It is something that you need to also figure out for yourself, right? When you're doing this. So if you would like this research method, you can read about it. I believe there should be some study notes for you that is saved there as well. But what I would like to share now is, now when you look at the philosophy that you're going to go by, there are 4 areas: positivism, realism, interpretivism, and pragmatism. When you look at positivism and realism, one side is very, we would say, very academic, and the other one is looking at realism, which is more realistic. Okay, so how this works is, say when you take the positivist approach and interpretivism, when you say positive, it's assuming that the knowledge is independent of the subject being studied. So what does that mean? The knowledge that is there is independent of the subject or the persons that you are studying. Interpretivism means that we are saying that the individuals that we are observing will have their own perception, their own understanding of it. Okay, so while the positivist will go for more scientific results in testing, interpretivism is more about the qualitative side. So positivism is more the quantitative, and we say that interpretism is more qualitative. Okay, now when you look at the other two parts, what we call realism and pragmatism. A pragmatic approach is more saying that, look, there is theory out there and there will be some understanding that is arising from the theory, but I am also open to seeing what my research subjects also say about it. So a pragmatist's approach is more about saying that there can be a mix of this, right? So I am going to evaluate theories and beliefs based on a practical side of it, right? So we don't have to go about saying, say, we are not going on the theoretical side of it to see whether this is real or whether it's based on something. It's more about practically understanding what is happening in the real world. And that's why I said that research, although it's a very theoretical thing, what we are looking at here is the practical side of it, real world application. So a pragmatist's approach is to see, yes, there is theory, there is academic study around it. However, I am also going to see what the real world results are telling me. Okay. So when you do your write up on the methodology and you're selecting most research that we would do would follow a pragmatic philosophical guide. Okay, because we are both taking quantitative and we are taking qualitative, and we are trying to address the research questions out there. So it's more about the practical solution. We will try to say, understand what is happening there from the research survey and the in-depth questions that we do. And we are going to then look at it and compare it to the theory out there. So when you use both, you're using qualitative, quantitative, both, it's a pragmatic approach. So even though I know one of Jalia, you're not going to use interviews, you're only going by the survey, that's still okay, because still what you're doing is you're going to be guided by the quantitative method of getting the results and addressing your research questions. All right, I hope that's clear. Is that okay? All right, so for all of you, from the philosophy, we are going on pragmatism, and then we move into the next layer. All right, so let's go to the next layer. A minute. share the screen here. Now, some of these words might not be that familiar with you. I'll explain it in very simple terms so that you will understand. So when you say deductive and inductive, it's two different approaches that you take. And this is what it's about, the approach. When you say deductive, you're looking at theory and then seeing what's going to be. So that means you keep theory as the starting point, and my approach is to say theory is right. I am going to see what's out there versus it now. Inductive says I am going to see the results, and then from the results, I'm going to go and look at theory. Okay. So it's two different ways. Deductive approach is, I'll give you the textbook definition also here. Right? Can you see my screen? So inductive is you observe what's happening, and it's like looking from bottom up, where you're basing the research is based their conclusions on a perspective. That means what do my respondents say? What has the survey showed me? Or what has my question, the in-depth interview revealed? However, when you look at it from the deductive side, it means I'm going on the theory, and then basis the theory, I'm saying, look here, this is what the theory says. Now, what does it say outside there? Right? I'm going to examine the theory and then say, so now tell me, out of these two, what do you think you are selecting? Deductive or inductive? Which one are you selecting? Is it deductive or inductive? Jalia, what do you think?
Inductive.
Okay.
Uh,
So you're not going to look
because
at theory?
no, I'm looking in theory, but the inductive is given the real scenarios or the practical scenarios.
Correct. Okay. But is the theory not something that you're going to look at?
No, I'm looking looking at that.
Oh,
Also.
yeah, because your chapter 2 is what? Your
Yeah,
chapter
theory.
2 is literature review. Okay.
Theory, yeah.
So what I wanted to point out here is deductive is looking at theory and then looking at what is out there and comparing. Inductive is getting results, and then from those results, I'm going to see what does theory say about it. Or is theory not saying something about it? Is it something new? So actually, you're using a mix of both. Okay. So yes, because we have to base something on theory, because we need to look and see what has already been done and what does the theory already out there say. What does the literature say about my subject matter? What is there already? And at the same time, I'm trying to see what does literature not say, and find that out through my surveys and my interviews. So it's actually a mix of both. We are saying that we are going to do deductive, yes, because I'm going to go into the research that is already there. I'm going to go into the theoretical concepts that are already there and figure out what is there, and then see whether my conceptual framework is going to test this is correct or not, or what is the gap. My conceptual framework is showing there might be a gap which I'm looking at in my research. Okay. Inductive means I'm going to do my research, find out what is there, and based on those results, I'm going to go and see what does theory say about it. Okay. So actually, this part of the research onion tells us that deductive plus inductive are both something that as researchers we will use as an approach, because we will not base our research only on, say, real world, because then we will go by what people say, which is their perspective, and then we are going to develop something around it. However, when we use both theory and the real world, we are giving a nice mix of the both in having a better analysis, and then coming up with a richer conversation about our research. All right. So that layer, deductive and inductive, are both parts of the approach that we are going to use. Okay, docs? You will see why I say that when I share the next part of it. Okay, so let's go back to the onion. Believe me, when at the end of your research, you are either going to love onions or you're going to hate onions. One of the two. Okay, so the next is now, I like to think of this as it's a very philosophical thing. Okay, why am I doing my research? Why? What's my purpose? That's your why, the purpose of your research. When you do that why part, that is this outer layer here. Although this is the outer layer, this is more like an inward out journey, because you need to be accepting your philosophy, and then your approach, you have to be okay with it. That means you have to accept it, and then basis that you come up with your strategies, and that is the how. How are you doing your research? Api singalin kiyana upaya marga, strategy. So there are different strategies that you can do, and that is this layer that we are talking about now. So you have in that experiment, survey, case study, action research, grounded theory, ethnography, archival research. Now, if you look at these different methods or strategies that are there, experiment means in a lab environment, you are doing an experiment. So you are putting, say, the respondents or the people and doing a particular test. So that experiment part is not something that we are doing here, right? And that is more into scientific lab-based research that is done. Survey, yes, you are going to do a survey. So what the expectation of a survey is that you have a structured set of questions where through the questions, you are trying to see how people respond to those variables. So your variables are the foundation for your questions. That's why when you drew your conceptual framework, you based all the survey questions on your conceptual framework variables, sub-variables, right? So a survey is a good thing to do. Case study. A case study is actually where, if you can do, it's good. A case study can be about a group. It can be about one person. So it can be an individual that you're doing as a case study. You can do it as a group, or you can do a case study on an organization. But the thing is this, case study is good if you can do, but it's not that easy. Some people base their total research on one person. All right. And it can be a case study on that person. So case studies are good, but you might be actually using an element of a case study if you're referring to a particular organization, like you all are doing. You're referring to an organization. Action research is more about observing a person's behavior, the actions, and you sort of give them tests to do, or you give them activities to do, and you observe what are the outcomes of those, or you see the action happening in real. So I don't think that action research is an area that you're going to do here. Then you have grounded theory. So grounded theory means you are looking at only the theory aspect. And when you say grounded theory is very academic in it, right? And it's part of qualitative research. And so it's like saying that you do qualitative research, and then based on that research, you generate a theory. So it's grounded in the data that you collect. All right. So you develop a theory based on a study that you do, it's mainly qualitative. And so you gather the data, and basis that data, you come up with a theory. That means the root problem, or you come up with an explanation, which we call then a theory. So that's the grounded theory method, which again is not what you're not trying to come up with a theory based on the research, but you're more like testing your framework. All right. So then let's say that we go to the next part, ethnography. Ethnography is actually dealing with the study of a particular ethnic group. Okay. So when you say ethnography, you're dealing with the study of a particular group. So that group can be, say, have characteristics which are very much uniform. So an ethnographic research would be, say, for example, you do a study of people who are of one ethnic background, and then you profile them in such a way that it is a very limited group that you are doing the research on. So again, none of you are doing something like that, right? Then I come to the last part, archival research. And what do you think about archival research? Are you doing that part? Archives means past research, right? So the things that have been done in the past, does that form part of your method? Yes or no? It does, right? Because you're going to look at literature, and the literature is about previous studies done, previous research that was done. Do you get that? So your literature review is basically about this, archival research. You're going into previous researches that have been done, previous journals, empirical evidence that is there from research studies that have been done. So you're going to go into these archives. That means you're going into past literature for some of the information or the data collection that you're doing. You're going to compare. You're going to say research says this, and you're actually referring to archival information. All right. So what I would like to say here is, in your particular research methodology, you will base it mainly on this survey, on archival research, and maybe even case study. Okay. So say if you're referring to, say, there's a case study done already out there, you can refer to that. But then again, it might be also considered archival research because it's a case study that is already there. If it is something that has not been published and it is an internal case study that you have done, that your organization has done, you can use that as part of the case study. You can use it like this. Say you don't refer to the case study because it's not public domain. You can interview the person who did the case study, okay, to gather information. So say, for example, you have an expert in your organization who has done a research or done a case study on a group of people in order to, say, develop the concept for a product. Like now, most of you are touching on digital banking. Now, when you look at digital banking, sometimes there are internal case studies that have been conducted. So you can interview a person there who did that. And from that interview, you can gather some information and use that. So what are you basing your methodology on, your research method? First, you're looking at a pragmatic approach, and you're using some deductive plus inductive. Then when you look at the strategies, you're going to use a survey. So your survey means the quantitative and the qualitative. Then you're saying you're going to look at archival research. You're going to go into the archives, into the old journals, literature that has been already there. empirical studies, that means far off in the past as well as recent. So they say that try to look at, now there are certain theories which are fundamental theories. Those can be very old. You can use those fundamental theories, but also look at more contemporary research. That means within the last 10 years, because some people have revisited certain concepts and they have brought in new knowledge, and those research findings have been published. So you can use that. And that is the archival research you're going to do. You're going to go back in time and see what is there already. So when you have these strategies now, your survey method, your archival research, and maybe case study, you then come across this new next layer, which is called the choices that you're going to make. What is the choice? When you have these options now, are you going to use mono method, mixed methods, or multi method? Right? So mono method means I decide I am only going to do, and you tell me, Roshantha, I am only going to do one method. Okay? I am only going to do quantitative, and that's it. Or you say, I'm only going to do qualitative, and that's it. When you say multi-method means I am going to do quantitative, but I am going to do quantitative for 3 different groups. So there is a survey that I'm doing, but it's covering 3 different groups, specific groups. I'll just give an example. Your mono method is quantitative method. So that means you're going to have a survey questionnaire published. Now, when you say you're doing multi-method, you can say, I'm going to do a survey, but it will be for a separate one for Gen X, separate one for Gen Z, separate one for millennials. Okay. When I say I'm doing mixed method, it is a mixture of quantitative and qualitative. Okay. So mixed method means I am going to also go on quantitative, and yes, I am also going to go on qualitative for my survey and questionnaires. All right. So your choices are then basis on what you would like to, your research, what you would like to focus on. You decide, okay, I am going to use only one single method, mono method. Or I say I am going to use multi-method, meaning within that particular choice that I make, quantitative or qualitative, I'm going to say there'll be multiple methods, sorry, that I conduct my survey. Or there will be multiple methods I conduct my in-depth interviews. I can say I am going to have in-depth interviews with single people, individuals, and I will also do a focus group. Now, if you are using both survey and in-depth interviews, it's called using mixed method. So most of you are doing mixed method, right? Other than Jalia, I think the other 4 of you will be doing mixed method, where you're doing both quantitative and qualitative. So is that part clear? Yeah. All right. So then you go to the next one, time horizon. So in any research, there is a time horizon that you have to state. How long are you going to do this research? What is the time bound part for your research? So if you say you are doing a longitudinal research, the word long itself means over a long period of time. So longitudinal research might be something where you consider a group of people over a longer period of time. Unfortunately, we don't have that much time. We only have 3 months to do the research. So when you say longitudinal, it could be, say, you're doing a research about the, say, let's take a subject like a group of new hires into the bank, into the organization, and you want to track them across how they develop leadership skills. So you're going to look at them as they join the bank, and then again in 5 years' time when they reach their first promotion, and maybe in another 10 years' time when they reach a more senior position. And you do the study over a period of 10 years with the same group of people. Now, there are researchers like that where people have actually looked at young adolescent children, and then studied them over a period of their full school career to understand the impact of certain environment influences or learning methods on how they perform. So that is across a long time. What we are going to focus on is more of a cross section. Cross section is a particular point in time. You take a cut of data and you analyze it, and then you have a discussion around it. So that's the method that you are going to follow, because what you're doing is you're looking at a cross section, a particular period in time. You are running your questionnaire over a period of a month. You are having your interviews with a particular group of people during a particular time, and it will finish within that time. That is what we call cross section. And so this particular research that you're doing is cross sectional. And when you explain these, you need to, in your methodology chapter, you are going to give not only the definition. Don't just write the definition, what is deductive or what is inductive. Say that the writer, or when you refer to yourself, the author selected this method because of this. And you can refer to literature when you do that. You can say that you are guided by research done by this person, and you can reference a person. Okay, so those are words that you can use when you're writing your chapter. You can say the author was guided by findings from, and you can quote the person and the study in deciding to use mixed methods. Or the author's decision to use cross-sectional was based on the limited time frame of the research and the scope, the necessary scope that was required for the research. So you actually mentioned that there's a time limitation there. Some of the research that you're doing may be good to do over a longer period of time. And then what happens is you can write about that in your limitations part. So you can actually comment about that when you write about the research limitations. Okay, so remember that you're giving your method, you're justifying the basis on which you do your research. That doesn't mean that it is the best method for you to do this research. It may not be the best method to do the research. Remember that there's a difference. This is the best option that you're selecting in terms of you doing this particular research. However, you can always comment that the limitation could be in the focus group you had, or in the number of respondents you had. It might be better to do this across a larger geography. Now, for example, Kanchana, you're focusing yours on the southern region. You can say that for future findings, you can recommend that this be the same survey, the same questions be applied to other regions in the bank, right? To look at different customers from different areas. So you can always mention that as a limitation and also future research options, opportunities. All right. So when you come to that chapter, when you're writing that part, you can actually mention those things, which will also add value to the whole research, because you are showing that you are aware, you are making an educated choice. It is a decision you're making to do your research around this framework, and you have justified it. But you are also aware that there can be further research done, and there can be further avenues to explore, and you're making a comment about that. That maybe there is a limitation to what we are doing, and that limitation can be further reduced if it is done this way. All right. So even digital banking, say adoption of digital banking, you can look at it over a period, because sometimes what is there now, technology, cost of the device, all of those things can have an impact now, but in another 5 years time, it might not be that relevant. Okay. So that is why it is always good to when you use the research onion, you're using it as the foundation for your study to show that you have used a proper framework in deciding my approach to the research. At the same time, you are also showing you are aware that there can be further areas to explore, which can expand the research further. But that is for somebody else to do, maybe. Okay? All right. And then finally, as you have made these choices and come to the innermost part, this is the toughest one: data collection and data analysis. Okay, so all of these things that you have decided and brought into focus leads to this, your data collection and the data analysis part. Right? And that's why I said it's good to keep adequate time to collect this data and analyze it. Remember, no research, or let me rephrase it, your research is only as good as the analysis you bring in, the discussion you bring in. Okay, because you can have a lot of data, and that's a problem that I would say many organizations in our country have. We have a lot of data, but what do we find out from it? And many organizations, their decision making is challenged because of that. You have so much data, but you don't know what to do with it. That is why in academic research, we want to build that skill in you to look at data and figure out patterns, trends, and something that will be of value to the business. And that is why this is so real world linked. We want you to do research based on real world problems so that you can actually go and present this paper in your organization and say, look, I did this study and here is my finding. This can help us improve what we are doing in our organization. Okay, so remember that your data collection and your data analysis is important, and the quality of the data that you collect, ensure that you get the right quality of the data, meaning let it not be biased, let the genuine answers come out. And that's why your questionnaire is important, your in-depth interview is important. Let the person speak on open-ended questions that you ask, and you capture whatever they say. I'll give you an example. Recently, I responded to a survey questionnaire for a person I know, and after the survey questionnaire, there was an option to come in for an in-depth interview also. Okay. Now I am a person that I am a professional coach, so I do coaching, and when I do coaching, one of the skills that we need to have is to listen. More than asking and having a lot of questions, we ask something, we inquire, but we listen to what the other person is saying. Now, something that I experienced when this person was interviewing me, when they did the in-depth questionnaire with me, is that I'm saying things and this person is interrupting me to tell something that has formed in their mind. When that happens, you are say what I felt was that person was being very the word for it is called autobiographical. Autobiography එකක් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද දන්නවද? මම ගැන ලියනවා නම් it's an autobiography. මම ගැන වෙන කවුරු හරි ලියනවා නම් it's a biography. හරිද? So autobiography is where I am thinking of things that are more important to me. That is my bias. එතකොට when I ask something, I am actually asking it from a frame of what I want to know, not what the person wants to tell me. When you do things like that, it can harm your results. So my advice to you when you're doing your interviews, ask open-ended questions and let the interviewee speak, when you try to cross-question them, keep it limited to finding out, letting them answer and find out more, but don't let your questions disrupt the flow of the conversation. හරිද? ඒක ආර්ට් එකක් ප්‍රශ්න අහන විදියෙන්. හරිද? For example, let's give an example. So I make a comment on using digital banking. And I say, I was in a real urgency to make a transaction, and I was facing this challenge while I was using digital banking. And then because of that, I might have lost an opportunity because I couldn't do that transaction. I missed out on buying, say buying something, let's say a car. Now the person interviewing me suddenly interrupts me. What was the car that you wanted to buy? Now, do you get it? A question එක කොහෙත්ම අදාළ නැහැ මේකට. It has no relevance on the research. I am trying to, because the research is about digital banking, I am trying to say my experience using digital banking and something that went wrong with it. And because of that, I couldn't do a transaction and maybe pay the advance for a car. Then the person interviewing me is asking, what was the car you're going to buy? That is interesting for that person, but not relevant to me or for the study. So remember, when you're asking questions, keep it very focused to your in-depth questionnaire. Use that as a guideline and make sure that you don't have any bias when you're asking the questions, so that you get the right information out. And it's focused on the research, because samarak velata, actually when you're having that's why I said you might have a 1 hour conversation, but there's only 15 minutes worth of data in it. Why? Because you might also get caught up in something. They might also go on talking about something. And because of that, it expands the conversation, but there's no real relevance to your research area or to your research questions. So keep your research questions focused, and at the same time, don't let either you or the other person get sidetracked. Make sure that you're focused on the area that you want to reveal. Now, a small thing about this research onion. Your research onion will be a little different because there will be certain choices that you have made. Now you have the flexibility of showing the research onion based on the choices you make. Although you're going to discuss in your write-up, you can say that you made these certain decisions and you selected pragmatism, and you talk about pragmatism. In that sense, you can do you can show the research onion, but a modified version of it with only the options that you are selecting. For example, when you show the diagram of the research onion in your research paper, you don't have to mention about action research in the diagram. Okay, or you don't have to mention about grounded theory. You can make the research onion with the options that you select, so that it is clear, not cluttered. All right. Again, for example, when you say cross-sectional and longitudinal, you don't have to say longitudinal. You can just leave cross-sectional in your diagram. So you can draw this diagram again. And friends, always remember, if you are using a diagram from the internet, now this is, I've taken a page from this particular website, a blog, but this is the Saunders model, Mark Saunders research onion model. Please remember at the bottom of the research onion quote that this is an adapted model from Saunders research onion. So how you refer to things like that is, you can say author's interpretation, or author's rendition, or author's adaptation of the research onion Saunders. Okay, because you're not showing the actual research onion, you're showing a modified version where you have only put in your selections. Is that clear? Okay. Clear, and thumbs up, please. Right? So this is very important. You have 3,000 words to write about this. We'll get into the writing part now. But the research onion part is important because this is the foundation of our research method that we apply. All right? Okay. So I hope this was clear. Yes? Is there anything that you'd like to ask about this? All okay? Okay. So let me stop sharing this. And let's move into the next part. So again, let's go back to the friendly guide. Give me 1 minute. Okay, right. So here we go. Now, like I said, I explained the ontology, epistemology, and axiology. However, as you can see here, it says discuss the research approach using the research onion starting from philosophical choices up to time horizons. Research onion is a good framework to organize this section. You can go through each layer and discuss your choices. You could also mention why you chose or why you didn't choose other options in each layer. You could define all the key works and concepts in methodology. Remember to reference all the terms, definitions, etc. So if you're using a definition, there are several journal articles on research methods itself. Okay, there are several articles that you can find on research methods and about quantitative study, about qualitative study, and there are justifications for using cross-sectional versus longitudinal, different on mixed methods and pragmatism. So remember to do in-text referencing whenever you write about a particular choice that you are making or why you're not choosing something. Discuss that part in this 3.2. Now, how I would define or divide, actually divide is the better word, how I would divide the word usage here, right? You have been given 3,000 words for the methodology. That's a lot. And that's really good. Okay. And I think it has been reduced. Sorry, 1,500 words. Sorry, my mistake. 1,500 words for methodology. So it has been reduced from here. Your introduction is only 1,000 words. And that's good because then you have a little more to write here and you have a little more to write in the literature review. So when you're going through this, remember there are going to be 5 points here up to 3.5. And this is that limitation part. I'll talk to you about that. Okay. So now, Jalia, you're only doing quantitative, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Lahiru, you're doing both, right? Quantitative and qualitative?
Yes.
Okay. And I know Kanchan and Samadhi also doing both quantitative and qualitative. Now you can see here, if that is the case, now for Jalia, it's going to be a little different. For the others, it's going to be similar. Now you can see that it is broken up like this. Study 1, qualitative, study 2, quantitative. Okay. Now Jalia, that means you have more to write because you don't have a qualitative. You're doing only the quantitative. Right? So everything that you will be writing will be focused on the quantitative. Since you have about 1,500 words, keep your introduction to the chapter to, let's say, I'll give you a small guide on that. Your introduction to the chapter should be, say, let's see. Maximum do about 200 words, okay? So the introduction, around 200 words there. You only have 1,500, right? And what you should do is keep about equal amounts for qualitative and quantitative. And then you need something for your discussion. That is, sorry. Introduction, 200 to 30. Let's see. Let's see. You might have to reduce that a bit. Yeah, because my methodology chapter, I actually had about 2,000 words to write. So maybe your introduction, try to keep it to about 100, 150 maximum. 100 words would be better. Then you have more to write on the research methodology, 3.2. I think for the research method, you might need about 500 words there. So let's do a little math. If you use 500 words there and about 100 words there, that leaves you with 900 words. Then 300, Madi. 500 each. Quantitative and qualitative keep about 500 words each. 400 to 500 words. Okay. So for your 3.3 and 3.4, keep 400 to 500 words each. Right. So if you do 400 words, you have 800 words gone there. And then if you have another research methodology, you'll need about 400 words to write that. If you write that for 400, that's 4, 8, 12. Then you have another 300. Then out of the 300, I would say for your limitations, keep about 150 words. Right? So if you have limitation 150 words, then you can have another 150 for your introduction. Okay? Sounds good? Right? So Jalia, for you, it won't matter because you can use the bulk of the words for your quanti. But for the others, divide it equally so that you have adequate space to write. So that's why I say for 3.2, 400 words, 3.3, 400 words, 3.4, 400 words. So you have 1,200 words there. Then with the balance 300 words, you're going to put 150 for your introduction and 150 for the limitations. Okay. My advice to you is, even if you write a little bit more for your research method, you need to make sure that you have enough words to write for your qualitative and quantitative studies. Okay. So limit maybe the introduction and whatever you can put into these 3 areas, keep more for these 2, because this is where you're going to spend a lot of time and you have to write. Here is a guideline here, and all of you, Kanchana included, your discussion interviews go by this. Okay. Don't try to overstretch yourself, because 15 interviews is tough. In this guideline itself, they are saying if you're only having qualitative, then 8 to 10 in-depth interviews. Okay. And 4 to 6 if you're having focus group discussions. If you only have focus group. However, if you are having a mix, or then you can decide to have even a lesser number. So 15 is a little too much. 10 is okay. 8 to 10, I am happy in terms of interviews. Quantitative, your census, right? When we say census is where a population is smaller, less than 100. If you're doing a sample, then your sample means you're taking a large amount. So when you're doing a sample, then you need to discuss the parameters of your sample. What are the demographics of the sample, right? Age, background, income levels, or you can say what type of clientele that you are interviewing, that you're putting for the survey. And I saw that some of you had mentioned your probability sampling and the sample table. Keep it to 2 dimensions. Don't go too much. If you don't have a sampling frame, you can describe the population, right? So that is, you can say age range, gender mix. How many people are you looking at in terms of, say, yeah, age mix, gender, background in terms of their, say, financial background, what sort of, are they from Sec A or Sec B or Sec C? That means middle age, low income. Now, one of you're doing about low income. So in what segment they are? And you can sort of mention also things like this. Now, in your research proposal, you would have said, I'm going to interview, say, 15 to 20 people. And in your survey questionnaire, I'm going to get 150 or 200 responses. Lovely. But when you go to the reality of it, you're going to see that you will get less, maybe. Time constraints will be there. People will not respond. Some people will just say, Hari Machang, I will respond. And then end of the day, they don't respond. Right? So you have to deal with that. The reality of the research. Okay. So when you're dealing with that, you can mention it here. So this is the chapter where you can actually tell about that part of it. I wanted to do this. However, this much only responded. And you give your response rate. And that you say that you had a 75% response rate to my survey, and hence the sample is deemed adequate for the research. Or you said you wanted to do 15 interviews, however, with the time constraints, you did 10. Fine. So whatever you mentioned in your proposal, you are either validating that yes, you did it, or you are saying that this is why and this is what I actually did. Okay. Remember that the research proposal is what was accepted based on what you said. It doesn't mean that if you couldn't achieve all those things that you said, that you have failed. Because we know the practicality of doing a research, sometimes you might have a few less respondents. We need to be comfortable with the sample that we get. Is it enough to do my analysis? Say you mention you're going to send the survey to 150, but you only sent it to 50. That is not going to be acceptable. Because then out of 50 also, you might only get a 70% response rate. Okay. So that is why it's very important that you ensure, one, you send it out to the right set of sample, you define the sample and then say, okay, this is what the actual result was. All right. So remember, when you're writing about these two areas, your qualitative research, you need to define your terms properly. What are the variables that you're studying, and define the questions properly, refer to that. In your annexure, you need to have your in-depth questionnaire guide, and you have to have the quantitative survey questions. So those are part of your annexures. And when you write this chapter, refer to that. Annexure 2 or annexure 3, refer to those when you write your research part here, the methodology part here. Okay. When you're discussing about the qualitative, also, who are you interviewing? Discuss, why did you select these people for this? Okay. Mention also certain things about the interview. What was the process that you used? Did you do online interviews? Did you use Zoom or MS Teams? How did you record? Did you record the conversation, and how did you transcribe it? Mention things like that to show your process. Okay. It's important as a researcher that we show a proper process in how we did the collection of data. Right? Say, what was the time allocated? Where did you have it? Did you do an in-person one-to-one interview, or did you do it online because of distance restraints or because of time restraints? How did you do this? What were the challenges that you faced? Maybe a person who originally agreed for an interview had to excuse. Did you get an alternate for that? And things like that. Whatever it is you faced in the practical part of your research, mention here. It shows the effort you put in. It shows the quality of the research that you did. Okay. Remember that this is something we are doing in the real world. So you will face real world challenges. It's okay to face those, and it's good to mention it. Even the quantitative survey, define everything in the quantitative survey, reference it, define the population properly. So you're sending it to this number of participants. Your gender breakup will be like this. You're going to maintain equity in when you're sending this out. All those things matter, so that it shows that it is a diverse population and not something that is limited. All right. So these are the things that will help show how the census is. Okay. These type of things, I would recommend you put it in a table. Okay. So when you're describing the population of your qualitative or your quantitative survey, put it in a table. It will be easier for you to show the information rather than writing it in a long chapter, because remember, you only have a limited number of words. Usually when you're counting the words, the university gives you some leeway in terms of having a table. Your table headings and your table descriptions count for the word count, but what's in the table is not counted as part of the word count. Okay. So your table headers and your table footers, that means the table description plus the table headings, will be counted as part of your word count. But the table data itself is not going to be counted in the word count. All right. So that's an important thing. Remember how you show your data, because I saw in in the research proposals and even in the first chapters, some of you have written very lengthy, lengthy paras, and that eats up your word count. And I saw that some of you had challenges because the word count was too excessive, right? Like I said, remember your introduction chapter, that first chapter, chapter 1, don't overwrite it. You will see that you will have much more information that you need to put in this chapter, in the literature review, and in the analysis. So if you lose word count for your introduction, you're going to lose here. Kanchana, I think, had a problem. Okay. Okay. So Kanchana is having challenges with the. Okay. So another thing I want to mention now, now Kanchana had to drop off because there's heavy rainstorms and lightning also. I can understand that there will be challenges like this. But remember, if you do have any questions or anything, please put it on the chat group, put it on the WhatsApp group, and I will answer you there so that you have something that you can go by. And if you have any doubts or queries, please have a conversation there. It's for the benefit of everybody, because one person's problem can be a problem for another person as well. And another person might actually have a solution for that. Okay. Um, there are tools that you can use for citations properly. So are you using a citation generator? Because you have to use Harvard referencing. Remember that. So get the Harvard referencing part done. There are online tools like Quillbot and Scribble that you can use to generate the Harvard referencing. I'll type that on the chat. Right? So use this for generating the Harvard method. And remember, Harvard referencing, there will be several ways of doing the referencing. In your list of references, how the reference should appear. In-text referencing, when you start with the reference, it's different. If you're having the reference in the middle of the sentence, it's a little different. If you're ending the sentence with the reference, it's a little different. Okay. Let me see if I can give you an example for that in a bit. Okay, so we are just completing this part on the qualitative and the quantitative. Remember to define all the key terms, reference it. How are you going to do your interviews? Explain that part. So these two are how you say you did your research. Okay. Why did you select this group of people? And how did you go about getting them into it? Something that I did was, actually, before I had the interviews, I sent an email to all my interviewees. I sent them a personal email individually. So they don't know, say I interviewed about 7 people in my research. Each person only knew that I was interviewing that person. They didn't know the other people. Okay. My study was amongst senior managers in my bank. I interviewed 7 people, but none of them knew the other person who was being interviewed. So I sent individual emails to them, inviting them. And first I called them and I asked, would you be able to be part of my interview? And when they said yes, I sent them an email. In the email, what I did was I first thanked them. I explained my research area and I said, this is my research topic. And this is the in-depth, this is the interview that I'm going to do with them. And I also gave them the 1 or 2 headline questions. In my in-depth interview structure, I had 1 or 2 questions, so they could be a little bit prepared, meaning they will know what to come ready for. And I gave them that small description, and then I mentioned this is the time, this is the date, and I gave them the link to the meeting, because I did most of those except for I think 1 or 2. Yeah, except for 2, I did all the others online. Online, why? Because I could record it. So MS Teams, you have the recording and transcription function, made it very easy for me. all I did was I arranged MS Team and I said I got their permission to record, and I do the recording and transcribing. So when I select the recording and transcribing, automatically, as we both speak, MS Teams will identify the two different voices. It will say speaker 1, speaker 2, and give the transcription. Very easy for you. Then once the recording is completed and you stop the recording and it compiles it, it will give you the transcription. You can download the transcription as a document. Before you download it, it will actually give you an option, right? It will show you as speaker 1, speaker 2. Okay. So you download it and then you have speaker 1, speaker 2, the sections. If you have Word, Microsoft Word, and you have a paid version where it has the editor function, there is also, I'll show you that. The version I used, actually, this was something one of my friends in my research group, in my cohort, they said, guys, do you know that there is this function? And explained it, which I had the function, but I didn't actually realize that I could use that. And this made it so easy. Okay. So on this standard Microsoft Word, this is the paid version, you have something called dictate. Okay. You have this dictate and you have editor here. So what I did was when I turn on this voice, it will transcribe this. Okay. It will transcribe my conversation. And at the same time, it identifies different voices. So you and your interviewees' voices can be specifically identified. And when you get the transcription, it will show speaker 1, speaker 2 at the beginning before you save the transcription. It will show speaker 1, speaker 2. Then you can edit speaker 1 and speaker 2 and put your names. So you can say Samadhi and you can say speaker 2 is the interviewee and say put the name of, say, Roshantha. And then it will capture into the Word document the whole transcription with speaker 1, speaker 2 replaced with the two names that you have put there. So these are tools that you can use to make your life easy. All right. So use online tools like this when you're doing your interview. In the two cases, I did it in person also. All I did was I started a MS Teams and we were both seated there and I turned on the recording. I think now when you use MS Teams, the only difference is it will only identify one voice based on the username. So both conversations come under your username and the transcription will only show one name. But when you use Word, actually it will show speaker 1, speaker 2. It identifies the two different voices. Okay. So use that for your interviews. What else can I share with you? Let's go back to the friendly guide. Remember, my friends, this is your handbook for these 2 months. Please use this. It will be very useful to you in structuring your research paper, making sure that you don't miss out anything. That's the most important thing, that you don't leave out anything that should be included in your paper. Go by this structure, the word count, manage it like that. I don't know whether you can see this. Let me. So I'm a bit of old school and new. I use new techniques. I used a lot of new techniques like word clouds and doing diagrams. And I actually used a lot of tools to help me, like this transcribing and all that, which are new things. But I am also very much old school. I'll show you a page from my my notes that I have taken down. I wonder whether you can see this, but okay. Very messy notebook. How do I show that? It's showing the, wait. Yeah. Okay. So you can see I've written the word count also. I kept on writing the word count for each chapter part, writing and cutting when I revise it. I did that, and the reason I did that is because it helped me to keep track. It helped me to keep track of my word count and to make sure I was within the word limits for those particular sections. So I would add and total up for each subchapter how many words I written, and make sure that I maintain that sort of structure so that I don't overwrite a particular section. Okay. So if I go back to this again, right. So we discussed about these two areas. The next one is the final part is 3.5, the limitations. So here is where you can say the limitations you had. Okay. Oh, and another thing about the data collection for the survey. When you do the data collection, I think all of you have mentioned you're using either SPSS or you're using statistical models, you're using MS Excel. You can use any of those, right? Even when you do the survey, if you're using something like MS Forms or Google Forms, there's a little bit of, based on your questionnaire, the demographic data that you collect, like gender, age, educational level, things like that, you will have some pie charts that are automatically generated by Google Forms and by MS Forms. Please use those. Okay, use that in your showing your diagrams. Use that in your research. That's also an effective way to show what was the sample of data that was collected. But you're not going to show that here. Here you're talking about how you're going to do it and what you did. The results, the pie charts and all that you can bring into your analysis discussion. That is in the chapter 4. Okay. So remember, anything that you generate out of that raw data forms as the raw data you can show in the annexures, but the refined data, that means the pie charts or graphs, things like that, you can bring into your analysis and discussion. Then about 3.5, the limitations. This is where I said you can talk about the limitations in the methodology you selected. A good example is that longitudinal versus cross-sectional. All of you are doing cross-sectional, but you can say that this particular study, if you can do it longitudinal, it can be done over a longer period, meaning that the results will be more defined, right? So you can mention that for future study. The author recommends that this be expanded to cover a larger group. Now, Lahil, you're doing about the low-income Colombo urban crowd, right?
No.
That's Jalia, is it?
Yeah, I'm doing it, sir.
Okay, Lahil, your focus is on the digital banking adoption, right?
I'm going to use census and distribute among our staff.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm going to follow the census method, not sampling.
Yeah.
Census.
No. Your focus area is your topic is
Digital banking adoption.
digital banking adoption, right? So now, Jalia, you're studying low income in urban areas, right?
Yeah, urban areas.
Right. So now your limitation could say that you're looking only at low income, why they are not adopting, and you're looking in urban areas. But you can say you can expand this to cover other areas also, like other regions in Sri Lanka, to see whether it's similar results for low income areas in other parts of the country, right? So likewise, you can say these are the limitations. I looked at this sample, but you say that you have done it, which is you are consciously making this decision to limit your frame to this. However, you understand and you are aware that there is something outside of your frame, and that is room for future research. So future people can have have their research areas on this, so they can expand on what I did. That is what you're saying here. Maybe you can say that I did only quantitative. Now, based on what I have found, I feel it'll be good to also do a qualitative study in the future. Okay, and so you can give those things. You can also say how it can impact. Now, for example, in Kanchana's one, she can mention about, she did it for the southern region to find out why people are leaving and going to other banks. So maybe that same study can be done for other regions, which will have which will give more insights to the bank in making their decisions. So you can always mention the limitations in that sense. Okay. Remember about 150 words there. Even you can limit your introduction to 100 words. Keep 200 words for the limitation if you want. There's no hard and fast rule. You need to keep 150 there, 150 here. But the main thing is, the three main components, 400 words each, because out of that 1,500, you need to have the maximum for those three areas. So even if you limit a little bit of word count in the introduction, you can add that to the limitations part. All right. So balance it off in that way. Have a guide like that so that you know how much you have to write. Also in Word, they have tools where you can check your grammar, you can check your syntax, you can even ask it to, you can ask the Word document insert in it. If you have written it too long, it might say that this can be shortened, this is too long. Use those tools at your disposal to ensure that you write and rewrite. Because remember, for me, while I was writing my chapters, I had to go back, revisit, and try to cut down words. Okay, you will do that. You will keep on trying to refine what you have written so that you get the essence and you keep it in such a way that the word count is managed. In doing that, there are certain techniques, like for the literature review, you can refer to 2-3 things using certain connecting words. Like you can say, however, nevertheless, in other words. You can use connecting words like that to connect two concepts or contrast two concepts. So you write about one literature that you have and you quote one reference, and it's one person's point of view or one person's finding. You find an alternate thing that is different or totally contrasting to that earlier point that you brought in. Then you can refer to it in the same sentence even and say, although XYZ, all XYZ stated this, or findings from XYZ this year revealed this. However, an alternate point of view was presented by ABC. Okay, so when you use connecting frames like that, connecting words like that, you can have a discussion. That is what is important. You see, as the researcher, it's important not just to state what other people said, but what is your take on it? What is your value add to that? And always remember, nothing is definite. When you're writing it, don't make it definite. Always leave room. So you can say the findings suggest, or ABC's research suggests that, and you can link it. Okay. Age might have an impact on digital banking adoption. Don't say age has an impact, because it's again, you're referring to somebody's research, which there can be some research that even prove that wrong. And that is the important part of doing research and the literature review. Not only finding things that are in line with what you are saying, some things that challenge you, that challenge your point of view. Okay. So that's about this chapter 3, the limitations and everything that I discussed. I have given you a timeline for chapter 3, right? So guys, I'm expecting your chapter 2 today and tomorrow. I'll give you till tomorrow. All right. So submit that so that I can go through, because I also need to go through and give you feedback on it. I have said that chapter 3 is due on 21st of June. So you have a little less than a month, but I've given you time, because you see your you can actually, some of these things you can write quickly and put aside. Don't wait till the last minute. Your literature review, you need more time. That's why I gave you a whole month to write it also, because I was not that concerned about getting that fast, because it takes time. I am sure that you will be finding articles even now. That's okay. You might find things that you want to include in your literature review even now. That's fine. Include it. As you go along and do the data analysis also, you might find things that relate and you want to discuss it. So you can bring those into the discussion. But remember, your conceptual framework is your basis. So the literature that you find should align to the conceptual framework. So seek out literature that talks about your independent variables. Look for journal articles and discussions, things that you can bring in that refer to these independent variables, to your dependent variables, and also where you are identifying gaps. So if a particular literature does not say about it, that's why that summary conclusion part is important when you go through the research papers. You can't read the full research. I know you will not have enough time. So make sure that you go through the executive summaries and the research finding, the final analysis, the conclusions that they present, because that will tell you also, and also the limitations that they have given. So they will say, although the research did this, this was the limitation. So that limitation is important for you, because that can be one of the gaps that you're exploring. All right. So make note, chapter 3 is due on the 21st. And by the way, 21st June, it's a physical in-person session. So we will be meeting at the next campus. I hope that's okay for everybody. All right. After that, and we will discuss the analysis part, chapter 4 there. And after that, your chapter 4 will be due on the 5th of July. Okay. So that is why from the 21st of June, although I said 1 month, 22nd June, give 1 month for your data collection, I am also hoping that you will get the data faster than that. Right? That's why I wanted you to send it out by the 22nd of May, so that you have adequate time to collect the data and to conduct the interviews. Because your analysis is actually where you do the writing. Okay. So your data analysis and the chapter 4 submission is where you have done the writing. So all this time that you're going to have is to do that analysis part. So the quicker that you get the data in, you have more time to do the analysis part, because that's going to take time. How you look at the data, how you see the patterns, and how you sort of derive the understanding from the data. That's going to take time. All right. So that's the session for today. Any questions, or can I know, was it useful to you? Have you learned something today? Will this help you? Yeah. Samadhi, are you okay?
One thing to clarify,
Yes.
the thing you said, we have to insert a table. For this, is it we have to submit in study 1 or 2 or in the appendix?
So you can do this. If you have, okay, so I'll tell you how I did it. In the methodology chapter itself, under qualitative and quantitative, I had tables describing the population. Okay. So I presented my population, and remember, say for the qualitative interview part, you don't have to give the names. You don't have to give their, internal designations or anything. You can give anonymous names for that. Okay. Have a referencing method. So for example, if you're saying qualitative and interviewee 1, have a mapping, internal mapping that you keep. So say, for example, you are interviewing, say, 3 people, myself, Jalia, and Lahiru. So I go as interviewee 1. So you can have a pseudonym or an anonymous name for me. Like instead of saying Roshantha Jayathunaga, you will say John Smith, and give a name like that. Then you refer to me as interviewee 1, right? So poly interviewee 1. So I could be in this particular, you can say Q1. Survey, the quantitative survey, you don't have to refer to each different independent respondent. You don't have to do that because you're 150. You're going to take the total accumulative data and look at the average values, the median values of that data. But for the qualitative, since you're doing limited interviews, you can have a referencing that you use so that when you write in the discussion, you refer to that. So that referencing table you can have with you, and you can give in the appendix additional information about that person. But the profile of the group, you can give that in a table format. So the number of people, gender, age, you can say what background in terms of their uh, uh, say their grade if it's people in the bank you're interviewing, their grade in the bank or their designation, not their designation titles, but more like the grade. And you can tell, say now, this is mainly for the interview part. So you give a description of the people like that. Okay. Demographics are important there. If you want to bring additional information about them, you can put that in an appendix and refer to that. Okay. All right.
So
Lahiru, how was it for you? Any questions?
Yeah, I have one question. Now, qualitative interview results. How are we going to put it to the Excel sheet or any other sheet now? It's a kind of interview now.
Yes. Yes, very good. So let me share like this. This was something I struggled with also. When you do a qualitative research, how do you actually analyze that qualitative data? So there are few ways of doing it. One, you have to identify from the qualitative data, the interviews, you will have questions. To those questions, you have the respondents. So on one side, you have the questions and you have the respondents. Identify what they say in terms of keywords and see whether there are common things that are said in the interview. Okay. So there are few tools that you can use to identify these type of things. One is using word cloud. Okay. Let me type that on the. There are what we call word cloud generators. But this is something that actually it takes time. Okay. What you do is you have to take the transcript from the interview, and then you have to do a little editing. What is the editing you have to do? You have to reduce the filler words. Now, when you have a conversation, I might say so, okay, or there will be noises like and things like that. All that gets captured in the transcript. So you have to delete those words. And you have to then identify only the parts of the interviewee, not you. So once you clean the document, you have to clean the document. That's why I said it takes time. And that's why it's good to limit the number of qualitative interviews you do. So when you clean the document and remove all those filler words like the and, so, things like that, and phrases like right, or api singaling harida kiyala ahanne. That like that, some people will say right, like, and they'll use repetitive words like that. You have to clean those out. Delete those words, and then you come up with the pure conversation. Then you can go online. There's something called the word cloud generator, and it'll let you upload a file. So you save this conversation, you keep the transcription separately, and then you take the conversation parts of the interviewee, not your parts, not the questions you ask or your in between what you say, but you only take the content of the interviewee and you upload that. So you cut and paste, or you copy paste that into the word cloud generator. Word cloud generator will then take all the words and put it in a table with the frequency of the words used. That will give you an idea about common phrases or common things said by your interviewees. So you can identify patterns that way. That's one way to identify. Another way is to, when you, let me just share. Let me see. There are some, in the interviews, there will be some nice phrases that come up. So you have to identify those key phrases. What you can do is you take your full transcript, and word cloud is one part. The other part is based on the questions you asked, were there particular responses that they gave? And did those responses give you some insight into your quantitative that you did? For example, there can be a phrase they say, I find it very convenient to use digital banking. Okay? Or they say that it's user friendly. It's difficult for me to use internet banking. Or they have a phrase like that. Now, this will relate to some of your questions in the quantitative. You need to capture those. And when you're capturing it, that referencing that I said is important. So your interview respondents, you're going to have a reference for them. So you can say, for example, B, R1, R2, R3. So that is interviewer 1, I1, I2, I3. So I1 said this. For this particular question I asked, I1 responded like this. For this question, I3 responded like this. And then you come up with the responses that they gave to particular questions, and you compare it across the different interviewees, right? So then out of that also, then you try to find, okay, why did this person say something like this? And what does literature say about a response like this? Or what is it that I'm getting from this? Does it equal the responses that I got in my quantitative survey? And you can compare them. So in my quantitative survey, I get a median response. That means now you will have a rating 1 to 5. So select this. So are you strongly agreeing or disagreeing? You have a Likert scale. Or you say that I find this useful or I don't find it useful, and you have a scale rating 1 to 5. So when you get your median response, that means the people who have answered at the median or the higher response for a particular question. In your interview, have you asked a question that generates a similar response? What have they said? And then you can compare. So, next slide. Sorry, my dog started going crazy. This so what was I saying? Yeah. So you're looking at patterns. You can always say each question that you have asked, what were the responses that you got, and put that in a table. So you show it in a table. This was the response I got. And see, the interview, actually, if you analyze the interview properly, you will see patterns, certain responses that will give you insight into your, even that will relate to your quantitative. All right. So then try to figure out what are those patterns there. So your qualitative is one that will give you challenges. But how I looked at it was I used word cloud to generate to see what were the common words that came out. And then common words, how many people refer to those same words. That also shows similarity in thinking in responding to a particular question. And then you give that as part of your analysis. And always remember, when you're writing the analysis part, that it's like a conversation. So you can actually take quotes, direct quotes from what the people said. So if a person says, I face challenges in using this, you can quote that. So you put it in quotations and you put that direct quote, and then you analyze on that part. Okay. So we'll look at that part. The discussion and analysis will be due. Let's see when. Yeah, so from 21st June when we meet, your discussion analysis is due on the 5th of July, right? So I will discuss with you a little bit more in depth on how to do the analysis, how to write that part, and how to make sense of the data. All right, and then you can use that to write your discussion. The discussion part will be the interesting one for you. Okay, because you see, everything that you're doing up to now, up to chapter 3, is all theoretical. Yes, in your methodology, you're telling how you're going to do it and your choices and everything. But the real interesting part will be when you start discussing your data. Okay, because that is your own thing. That's your hard work, getting that and analyzing it and showing something new. All right. Yes, Lahiru. You're on mute,
One
Lahiru.
more thing, yeah, is there any way to get a feedback for our research proposal? I think we didn't get any feedback for the research proposal we submitted earlier.
Okay,
So
now
we wonder whether the things we did are correct or not. Sir. That's the
okay.
thing.
Let me check with the team. I don't know whether a written feedback was supposed to be given to you by your supervisor, meaning normally the research proposal is looked by the person who did the research module for you. But I think they gave you individual feedback, right? Did they give you verbal feedback?
Proposal, I think the one proposal we made, we didn't get any feedback.
Oh, okay.
Just topic we got feedback.
For the research topic, you got feedback.
Yeah, correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. So let me just check that.
You've done correctly. Yes.
Okay. Let me just check that. Right. Any other questions?
Yeah, sir. I'm collecting data with the printed copies as well, the same question here. So do I need to, because some of my target group is they are not familiar with Google Sheet and other things.
Correct.
Because they are low income earners, no? So do I have to attach those papers to the research or not?
No. You don't have to attach the papers because you're giving the questionnaire format, the questionnaire survey you're giving. Anyway, you have to keep that data, but you don't have to attach it to this. when you're doing the questionnaire online Google form, it's the same thing that you're using for the physical form, right? Same structure,
Yeah, same thing. Same
identical structure.
structure with both languages, English and Sinhala as well.
Okay. So what you can do, I'm just thinking whether this might be something that you can do. As an appendix, you can include the English and the Sinhala version also, saying that you did a translated version in Sinhala also for this. Now, when you're writing your limitations, that can be a limitation. If you have not done a Tamil version, you can say that a Tamil version can expand the study group also.
Right.
Yeah, the target audience can be expanded if a Tamil version also can be done. Right? So you can say something like that. And you don't have to include the physical papers, that's not required, but keep that information ready.
Right.
Okay. Because anyway, for the Google Forms also, you're not going to show the individual responses in the research paper or in the annexures. You're giving the summary of it. You're showing the analyzed data. So you will analyze the data and show the findings as part of that analysis part, but you're not going to be showing the individual responses. Okay.
Right. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions you have? All right. So I wish you well with the next chapter. We meet on the 21st, right? And look forward to reading your chapter 2s. So submit it over the weekend. All right. And you can use the same chapter 2 submission point, right? So use the same chapter 2 submission point and upload it. Just make sure you name it properly, the document, so that it doesn't get mixed up with the previous submission. All right, then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye.
Okay.